So today was day 2 of practice and qualifying for the Honda Indy 200 at Mid-Ohio. It was a pretty eventful but clean day, so let's go ahead and get right into it. So starting off with the morning session, practice 2, there was actually quite a lot of drivers going off track that you wouldn't expect. First up, Alexander Rossi had gotten loose on corner entry, and he just kind of flat out went wide and got off on the grass. Next up, Scott Dixon with a quite rare mistake, though, albeit in practice. Looked like he had just locked up the brakes after that long straightaway and went off. He had went through the gravel trap quite rough. He was lucky to not break his front wing. And Simon Pagenaud had also gone off at turn 1, and he's pretty much just testing the limits, but he went off by quite a bit. Speaking of Alexander Rossi, who we talked about, I guess, probably a minute or so ago, he was actually quite slow this session, really struggled to get a lap together without having some type of issue. He'd either hit traffic or he'd get loose somewhere, or obviously he spun. For most of the session, he couldn't really get a lap pulled together that well. He ended up actually finishing 14th in the session, but let's go ahead and talk about the actual results of the session. So first up, Pato Ward with a 106.0911. He was fastest in the session just by a little bit over Joseph Newgarden with a 106.0993. Third, Colton Herta with a 106.1839. Fourth, Graham Rahal with a 106.3348. Fifth, Ryan Hunter-Ray with a 106.3657. And sixth, Will Power with a 106.3943. So most of those guys up in there were the guys you'd expect. Obviously, Pato Ward, Joseph Newgarden, Colton Herta, Graham Rahal, which is interesting. He's generally not that quick in qualifying, but was quick in practice today. But the main thing I want to talk about was actually Pato Ward, because he was fastest in practice number 2, but he was also 20th in qualifying. So quite a big difference for the practice where teams are doing qualifying runs. Wasn't exactly something you'd expect, especially out of Pato Ward, to go fastest and then be 20th. They must have had some type of issue or something that they were dealing with. They weren't able to go anywhere near fast. But yeah, it wasn't a great day for Ward in terms of qualifying pace in the actual qualifying session, but he was quite fast in the first session. Let's go ahead and get into qualifying here. So first up, in round 1 of qualifying, Q1, round 1, Will Power had another ECU issue. So, seeming like quite a common occurrence. He had obviously the ECU issue in Detroit. He had 3 ECU issues during the month of May. Obviously that got less coverage because it was practice sessions probably instead of race sessions or qualifying or whatever, so that's going to get way less attention. But apparently this is his 5th ECU issue that we know of. So something about Power's ECUs not working well, I guess. But Power had that ECU issue. They had to change out the ECU, but he was able to get out and get a run in on red tires, and he was actually able to put the car into Q2. So quite a good job, quite a good recovery from Power's team and, of course, Power himself. Another interesting thing, the controversy at the end of Q1 round 1. Jack Harvey had spun at the exit of Thunder Valley, and he basically was just parked kind of right after the exit of the corner. So that was obviously blocking the track, and local yellow flags were thrown. That sounded weird. I sounded like a robot saying that, but local yellow flags got thrown. So there were only 2 guys coming in behind Jack Harvey, Simon Pagenaud and Alexander Rossi. Now, Alexander Rossi was the first guy to pass. He had improved slightly on his original time, but it didn't move him up any positions. And he looked like he had slowed off just a little bit in the corner. Simon Pagenaud had pretty much just gone straight through. He might have backed off a little bit. It's kind of hard to tell. especially NBC hadn't showed any telemetry, so there wasn't any good way to tell if Pagenaud had backed off or if he just had to go slower through the corner for some reason. Good grief, can't talk today. But that ended up causing quite the controversy because Pagenaud just barely made it into Q2, and Rossi was just barely outside of Q2. So Rob Edwards and the 27 team brought the complaint up to IndyCar that Harvey's fastest lap time should be deleted for causing a yellow flag, and Simon Pagenaud's lap time should be deleted for unsafe driving, not slowing through a yellow flag sector. Now, it was the right call. IndyCar ended up agreeing with him, though also deleting Alexander Rossi's time, though it didn't end up mattering because it was only barely faster and it didn't change anything about the positioning. So, in my opinion, it was 100% the right call. I mean, rules are rules. For Harvey, yeah, if you spin, the rule is if you cause a yellow flag, that your fastest lap time gets deleted. Same for Pagenaud. Obviously, you can't just, drive as fast as you can through a sector with a yellow flag and a guy spun directly at the exit. So, obviously, that had to be penalized. In the end, Jack Harvey and Pagenaud both missed out on Q2, and Rossi ended up making it. So, right call, but might have been a little annoying for Pagenaud and Harvey, though. They had talked with Pagenaud, and he sounded frustrated, but he sounded like he agreed with the call, which is obviously a hard thing to accept when it's going to end up getting you kicked out of the next round in qualifying. But yeah, basically right call, as confusing as it was. On to round 2 of qualifying 1. Rinus VeeKay had actually gotten into Q2, which was nice. Obviously, this is his first race back since getting hurt in a bike crash. Ryan Norman was slowest that session, which put him 25th on the grid. Roman Grosjean, a big surprise here, was out in qualifying 1. And same with Pato O'Ward. He was actually 20th, like I had mentioned earlier. So not a good result for Pato O'Ward. Obviously, he's going to be fighting for the championship. And at a track like Mid-Ohio, where speed is really key, or not speed, but track position is really key, it's not exactly great to be starting 20th in the pack. So they've already they were talking in practice 3 that they're probably going to be doing some type of off-strategy thing. They had been trying to test fuel saving and different fuel mixes. So it's obvious that they're going to be doing some type of off-strategy thing tomorrow. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. But yeah, on to the Fast 12. Sebastian Bourdais had gotten a speeding penalty coming in from the middle stint. He had to serve that drive-through, which is actually quite interesting because obviously everyone else was going out for their final run, so he probably lost about 30 seconds in the pit lane serving that drive-through. So that probably messed up their positioning on track. They might have lost a lap, but yeah, he ended up qualifying. He ended up qualifying 12th, so looked like it ended up hindering him enough that he wasn't able to advance. Also, Alex Palou at the last second was bumped out of Q3 by his teammate Marcus Ericsson, which in terms of the championship battle is quite interesting because obviously Palou is leading the championship right now, just barely over Pato O'Ward, so he's going to want every single position he can get for starting. But 7th, especially according to Palou himself, they had actually been talking in an interview. Palou said he was content with 7th. But yeah, going to be a little bit further down than Palou might have wanted for starting tomorrow. Now getting into the Firestone Fast 6, you had Joseph Newgarden, Colton Herta, Will Power, Alexander Rossi, Scott Dixon, and Marcus Ericsson in that session. Joseph Newgarden ended up taking pole, and Herta, who was on pole for most of the time after time expired, got knocked off the pole just barely by Joseph Newgarden. It was only 0.03 of a second, that's 0.03 of a second. So barely any gap between Newgarden and Herta, but Newgarden just edged out Colton Herta for another pole. I think he He got pole at Road America, and if I remember right, he got pole at Detroit as well in race 2. So quite a run for Joseph Newgarden in terms of qualifying. We'll see if they can finally avoid any bad luck and pull it together and maybe get a race win tomorrow. And then third, Marcus Ericsson, quite a surprise. Obviously, like I had talked about, he had bumped his teammate out of Q3, but he was pretty fast in terms of, but he was still half a tenth off of Herta and Newgarden. So other guys, we had Will Power, 4th with a 107.1161. 5th, Scott Dixon with a 107.1358. And 6th, Alexander Rossi with a 107.2181. So let's go ahead and move on to practice number 3. Practice 3 was a pretty uneventful session. You have Scott Dixon fastest at a 108.0256. Second, Colton Herta at a 108.0745. Third, Roman Grosjean at a 108.1490. Fourth, Max Chilton at a 108.1640. Fifth, James Hinchcliffe at a 108.2429. And sixth, Alex Palou at a 108.3249. So those are the guys you're going to be kind of expecting to be fastest overall in this race. In terms of Joseph Newgarden, he was 7th. So it looks like the pole sitter will probably be contending in terms of race pace. Obviously, Herta, who's starting second, was second in that session. And Marcus Ericsson was 8th, just behind Joseph Newgarden. So that's really all that I have to talk about in terms of general action throughout the day. There are a couple of other things that I want to talk about. First up, Ryan Norman. Obviously his second day in an IndyCar, but he was actually doing quite well in terms of, I guess being his second day in an IndyCar weekend. He was faster than Jimmy Johnson all 3 sessions. He was 25th in the first session of the day, practice 2, at a 107.4, ahead of Jimmy with a 108.2. For qualifying, he was 26th, though he was a second faster than Jimmy, just the way the groups worked out, because Johnson was in Group 1 and Norman was in Group 2. So, kind of got shafted a little bit there, but I guess that's just how the rules work. And then in the final practice, Norman was actually 21st with a 109.2. So, pretty successful day for Ryan Norman in terms of his first IndyCar weekend in a Rick Ware car. So, I'm sure he'll be happy with that and ready for the race tomorrow. Like I said, he'll be starting 26th, but looks like a pretty good day for Ryan Norman. So that's really all that we've got for day 2 of action at Mid-Ohio. We'll be back tomorrow with a race review, hopefully soon after that race ends, because I've got stuff going on later that night because it's the 4th of July. But yeah, that's really all I have. Thank you guys all so much for watching. I'll see you all then. Bye.